we have to do it.
Thank you very much. Representative Cloud.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and thank you for the opportunity to share the story of those of us who live in border states and have experienced this humanitarian and criminal crisis for decades. First of all, I'd like to thank the men and women of the Border Patrol and the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement for their continued service to this nation. Many of them are veterans who view this job as a way to continue their service to our great nation. Many have served overseas to preserve our freedom on the front lines, and defending our borders at home they view as a way to continue their service back home. Many of them realize, the men and women serving, realize that protecting the homeland and defending our border by fighting back against the corrupting influence of cartels is just as important to the communities and families across this nation as fighting overseas. Wednesday marked the one-year anniversary from when I was sworn into office. What I've learned in a year is that many members of Congress would rather talk about a problem than actually fix it. Thankfully, the President has made this a priority, and it's past time for Congress to do the same. I cannot understand why we would allow this problem to continue when we know what would help to fix it. Close the asylum loopholes cartels use to exploit people, fix the Flores settlement so that we can ensure families remain together, and many other situations or circumstances or solutions that are been presented before. Shortly after I was sworn in, I visited the Texas border, not for the first time, and was asked by Border Patrol what would be a win. And they told me situational awareness. That was in August of last year when 16,744 migrants were apprehended by the RGV sector. In June of this year, that number has nearly tripled. There were 43,197 apprehensions in that sector alone. Our current border facilities are not designed to handle these current numbers. Border Patrol and ICE are doing the best they can with extremely limited resources that we have given them. They understand they don't have the tools and resources they need to even begin thinking about mitigating the influence cartels have in our nation, because Border Patrol is undermanned and underfunded, and Congress has done nothing to help. During our visit just a few weeks ago, the phrase I heard over and over is, "There is no end in sight." The southern part of Texas's 27th Congressional District, the district I am proud to represent, is roughly 2 hours from the U.S.-Mexican border town of Micheal, Texas. If fixing this crisis had been left up to Texas, we would have done it several years ago. Widely recognized as a fatal funnel, two major interstates, US 281 and US 77, come up from Mexico and feed right through our district. Why is it called the fatal funnel? Time magazine ran a story in May of 2015 titled "The Border Corridor of Death Along America's Second Border." Customs and Border Protection even warns in their website, if you're traveling on highways US 281 and US 77, please be cautious of your surroundings as smuggling activity runs rampant. Or take the Houston HIDTA 2018 threat assessment that's filled with examples of drug and human smuggling conducted by the Gulf and Los Zetas cartels through the district and surrounding area. Or take the story of 19 migrants who were found dead in the back of a tractor-trailer truck 10 minutes from my house in Victoria. They died in a tractor-trailer truck in the sweltering heat. Authorities found a 5-year-old boy who had died in his father's arms. Deputy Chief Roy Boyd of Victoria County Sheriff Office says that gangs are moving more and more into slave trade now because of how profitable it is. While a kilo of cocaine or any drug can be sold once, human beings can be sold numerous times every day. Boyd says that these migrants are being sold into slavery, both sex slavery and labor. The RAND Corporation recently published a study that said, we found the revenues from smuggling migrants from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras combined could have ranged from a total of about $200 million to a total of about $2.3 billion in 2017. Let's let that sink in when we consider the resources we're giving to our resources at the border. Congress is allowing these cartels to massively profit because we refuse to close off the avenues they are using to smuggle migrants. This is not just these gut-wrenching stories either. At the end of May, I, along with Representatives Grothman and Heiss, went to the border. We were briefed by Border Patrol on who and what is coming across the border. We were joined by my friend Hector Garcia and the National Border Patrol Council on a ride-along through the night to see how these fine men and women at the Border Patrol use the meager resources they have to prioritize life, provide for these migrants, and defend our country. We visited a ranch where we heard stories of those who live on the ranch are fearful for their own lives because of the number of the cartel members smuggling through their own property. They're afraid to walk their own land. The manager of that ranch said his wife cannot go on a walk or run around the property without the dog and a gun. Cartels cut chains and locks, bust through fences with their trucks, use private property to avoid stations. Somehow, these are the stories that the media fails to report, but sadly what's become normal for the people of South Texas. Let me leave you with this story I've shared before, but it's worth sharing. I visited an unaccompanied minor facility. There were a number of young ladies there, about a couple hundred. I asked them about the care and what these young ladies had been through. They said about 40% of them have been sexually abused along the journey. This is the tragedy we've allowed to metastasize while many in Congress spent months claiming this was a fake, manufactured crisis. Real compassion would have been for us to do something about this and have the wisdom and foresight to avoid the situation that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, instead of implementing policies that enable what the cartels are doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Representative Cloud.